quiz at the end of our show. As you saw in the montage, we have a lot to cover today. Hi, everybody. Hope you're up, and it's my belief that you're dressed, but we're never going to know for sure, Ainsley.
Don't toss it to me when you say that. Okay, everyone get dressed this morning. Thanks for waking up with us. It is 6:01 here on the East Coast. Probably going to be another scorcher. We'll check in to find out what the weather's going to look like in your part of the world.
I can just tell you, I was looking at my app, Ainsley, and we got another heat advisory here in the Big Bad Apple.
Hot week on tap.
It's going to be another one where it feels like it's over 100 degrees, but Brian, not as hot as it's going to be in the hot seat on Capitol Hill.
Yes, when I need the weather, I call Janice Dean Collect. But meanwhile, back to this. A live look at the Capitol Hill, where in just hours, Bill Barr is set to testify before the House Judiciary Committee.
That's right. The Attorney General expected to be grilled by those Democrats, demanding answers on everything from Russia to the protests now rocking our country.
Griff Jenkins is live in Washington with a preview of what's to come. And Griff, we've already seen, Fox has already gotten our hands on his opening statement, and he comes out swinging.
He sure does. Steve Ainsley and Brian, good morning. And it's going to be a hot seat, but expect a no-holds-barred version of Attorney General Bill Barr, who vigorously defends his judicial independence as well as his actions ranging from the federal response in Portland that we've just seen to the Durham investigation. And in a preview of those opening remarks, he'll throw the first punch over the Russia probe, saying this, quote, "Ever since I made it clear that I was going to do everything I could to get to the bottom of the grave abuses involved in the bogus Russiagate scandal, many of the Democrats on this committee have attempted to discredit me by conjuring up a narrative that I am simply the president's factotum who disposes of criminal cases according to his instructions." Well, Democrats have long awaited the chance to grill Barr, and today's hearing having been delayed due to coronavirus. So expect the grilling to be extensive and lengthy. Here's Speaker Pelosi.
Attorney General Barr is there to protect Donald Trump. And I think it's quite self-evident in all of his actions that he has not acted in the people's interest.
Meanwhile, you can expect Republicans on that committee to come to the Attorney General's defense. Ranking member Jim Jordan had this to say.
Ever since he called it what it was, the Obama-Biden administration spying on the Trump campaign, we now know that's exactly what they did. Ever since he was willing and had the courage to tell the truth, they've been out to get him.
A couple of quick notes. The hearing starts at 10 a.m. and is expected to last 4 to 5 hours. First appearance of Barr before this committee, and he is appearing voluntarily, not under subpoena. So, guys, it'll be interesting to see if the issue of executive privilege comes up at any point. Steve, Ainsley, Brian?
Exactly.
Thanks, Griff. Great job. And just a quick thing on this. I think Democrats are saying, well, we can't wait to get at Attorney General Barr. If you give him a chance to talk, and I believe he'll have a chance to talk, I think it's going to blow up in their face. He cannot wait to talk about what he's discovered since the last time they met with Russia. He can't wait to justify what's happening in Portland, Seattle, Chicago, Albuquerque, Austin, Texas, and why federal agents might be needed there or are needed there, and more are coming. He cannot wait to go over what they used in order to go at the feds, go at the police force, and why they need some backing. So he's going to justify all of it. He also has some stats when it comes to African Americans and policing, and whites when it comes to policing, that maybe Democrats aren't ready for. I don't know if they've met Bill Barr, but every time they try to grill him, it doesn't work out. I sense it's not going to be any different today.
Yeah, he says, because you don't agree with me on Russia, the scandal, the grave abuses, the bogus, you're going to discredit me. And he said, judging on this letter that you've sent to me to invite me to this hearing, it's going to be more of the same. But you're right about the black-on-black crime. He wants to focus on that. He wants to focus on law enforcement. He says our law enforcement so diverse now. He said much further diverse than ever before. There were both more black chiefs, more black officers in the ranks, he says. He talks about, he quotes the Washington Post saying the number of unarmed black men killed by police so far this year is 8. Number of unarmed white men killed by police over the same period is 11.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Bill Barr has been Attorney General before. He's really good at this, and we're going to see it. It's going to happen at 10 o'clock this morning. Griff kind of touched on how Republicans would come to his aid. He doesn't need anybody to help him. But I got a feeling the Republicans are going to ask a lot about John Durham and the Russiagate investigation. And in fact, you know, there are no coincidences in Washington, D.C. It's just a couple of days ago we heard about this guy. You know, the dossier didn't come from Russia. It came from perhaps the Brookings Institute, where a senior analyst by the name of Igor Danchenko apparently was behind it. He was paid a bunch of money from Mr. Steele, while Mr. Durham's report is coming out. Mr. Barr can't address that directly, but the Republicans will be able to form their questions around that. And it's going to be great. You're going to see it right here on Fox. Meanwhile, let's talk a little bit about this. We heard last week about how Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden had gotten together. They'd come up with kind of a party platform so that there was unity, because ultimately Joe Biden needs Bernie Sanders supporters to vote for him in November. But now there is a headline out, and it makes it very clear that the Bernie Sanders people, Brian, are not on board with Joe Biden's DNC platform.
Just 600 Democrats out of the 4,000 roughly delegates that have to sign off on the party platform, which no one pays attention to, but it's symbolic to say to the rest of the world and the rest of the country, look out, Republicans, we're on the same page. But here's a little excerpt from the Democratic Party platform, which is causing so much tension among the the Bernie Sanders delegates. Quote, the Democratic Party and their platform committee process has failed to date to incorporate a clear progressive platform plank for Medicare for all for adoption by the 2020 National Convention. I continue. The undersigned delegates to the Democratic National Convention pledged to vote against the 2020 platform that does not include universal single-payer Medicare for all platform plank. Now, what's the significance of this? It's still going to pass, and it's probably better for the country if someone's to be elected president and doesn't bring the country way to the left or way to the right. But it's not good for the party. We already saw that party come apart at their convention when everyone was allowed to get together and breathe on each other. Now we're not allowed to. We got to wear masks and stay away. So even on a virtual event, there's not going to be any backroom deals to get people together on the same page. They're going to be Zoom conferences where people can sit in their garages and just talk about how Joe Biden at 77 years old is really somebody you can't count on, despite the manifesto he sounded off on.
All right, so bottom line is Democratic Party committee, the platform committee, they voted on the platform. They agree with it. Not every Democrat is online. Like Brian said, there are 4,000 delegates that are supposed to go to that convention. They're going to be doing it virtually. Congress members are going to be talking virtually too at the DNC, which is in Milwaukee on August 17th. And hundreds of them signed this pledge. 600 were being told to just say, I am not voting for the platform when you ask for my vote because it doesn't have Medicare for all. Bernie Sanders says, let me make it clear, I still support Biden. I want Medicare for all, but the goal is to defeat Trump. That's about the only thing that they are united on as a party. Now, President Trump was in North Carolina yesterday. He was at that biotech company that's trying to develop a vaccine. He says he will be going back for the RNC. Listen to this.
We're actually coming to North Carolina, as you know, and we're having a very major, I guess that would be the nomination night. So that's Monday. That'll be Monday. They're going to be here. And the rest we'll do in a different form. We could have done it many different ways, but I think we did the right thing. And I'm really happy that we're going to be having a piece of it, at least, and a very important piece in North Carolina.
He says we're going to have tele-rallies. We're going to be doing a lot of this online. He was asked about canceling Jacksonville, and he said, I think we did the right thing. He said, I'm really happy to have the piece, at least a piece of it, and the timing for that event was not right. There's nothing more important than keeping our country and our people safe.
You know, ultimately, for decades, the conventions have just been big TV shows, really. It's still going to be a TV show. It's just who's going to be in the room at the time. That's going to be different, just as baseball is different, as we saw over the weekend. Ronna McDaniel was on our program just yesterday, and she kind of tipped the hand. They don't want to give away all of the details, but nonetheless, she did detail how the Republicans will be different than the Democrats when they have their big show.
Let me just say something about our convention. As the president speaks to the nation, we will be highlighting our candidate. We will be talking about President Trump and how excited we are to renominate him to lead our country for 4 years. I think the Democrats' convention should be called the Invisible Man sequel, because their convention will be about how do we hide Joe Biden? How do we create this disappearing act for our candidate so the voters don't get to see him? They'll probably throw Obama out there every single night.
Well, that is true, and she's not even using the same as rhetoric. They do not let Joe Biden out much, and they don't let him talk. But I will say this: if the president continues to show the discipline he's shown over the last 10 days, the gap's going to close on those polls, and Joe Biden's going to have to come out of the locker room and win. And if he has to do that, that's when Republicans are confident that he can't.
Well,
Meanwhile,
ultimately, Brian, the number one issue with the whole world right now is coronavirus, and it depends on how things go with that.
and if Joe Biden has to defend it and show me what he's going to do besides repeat stuff that we're already doing, that I don't really know if the American people are going to tap into that. Jillian Milley, you're up.
But I always assumed the Russian subsource was some guy in Russia deep in the bowels of the Kremlin. The subsource was a senior Russian researcher at the Brookings Institute. He calls up a bunch of people in Russia. Where do you think this information came from? It came from the Russian intelligence service. They played this guy like a fiddle.
There you've got Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham speaking out as the investigation into the secret source of information for the Steele dossier expands into the Brookings Institute. What? That's right. Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett joins us. Greg, you know, for years, because the FBI was not forthcoming with this, because apparently they've known for 4 years who was the subsource. It was this guy at the Brookings Institute. We all figured it was somebody in Russia. But no, it's somebody a mile from the White House.
You know, it's funny. As I was writing my 2 books, I ran across Danchenko's name several times. I could never piece it together because, frankly, Steve, it is so wild and stupid that Steele's source was not from Russia, but it's a guy in Washington, D.C. working for the liberal Brookings Institution. Now it sort of makes sense because the president of Brookings at the time was Strobe Talbot, longtime Hillary Clinton ally who was helping to fuel the collusion narrative and had his own contacts with Christopher Steele. And it turns out that Talbot's brother-in-law is the Clinton sycophant Cody Shearer. I write about him extensively in my book Witch Hunt, how he created a second dossier, contents of which were transcribed into Christopher Steele's phony dossier.
Right.
So, I mean, the machinations of this, and it's all Hillary Clinton. Her campaign's paying for the dossier, and it turns out some of her allies are feeding the dossier information, all fabricated.
Unbelievable. I mean, how would the American dialogue have been different had that name been revealed and, you know, Comey would have had to address that and the Mueller report would have addressed it. Instead, the name was redacted until some people figured it out and then it was confirmed through his lawyer. I want to get your comment from the Brookings Institute. They say neither the Brookings Institute or employees had any involvement in the creation of the Steele dossier, and they go on and on and on. The last line is Brookings has fully complied with its obligations as a nonprofit organization, because it was suggested if they are doing political things, they cannot be tax exempt.
That's right. And, you know, Devin Nunes has said Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee are now going to be investigating the Brookings Institution. So we'll wait and see what comes of that. But your first point is correct. If James Comey had been honest and told the truth, instead of lying to the president, lying to the American people, and I think lying to Congress about information in the dossier, you know, the media would not have used it as a cudgel to bludgeon Trump for the better part of 3 years. It would not have led to a special counsel who, of course, in the end found no collusion conspiracy. It would have dramatically changed the course of Donald Trump's presidency if Comey and the FBI had been honest.
And I got a feeling that fellow's name, Mr. Danchenko's name, is going to come up later today during the bar meeting with Capitol Hill. Meanwhile, you sit down with Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity said once upon a time he was never going to write another book again. But look at this. He's written another one. It's called Live Free or Die. And you chat with him this Friday at 7 on Fox Nation.
Yeah, and he describes what America will look like if progressives and liberals win in November. It's chilling what it will do to America. So, you know, frankly, anybody who's intending to vote, and I hope everybody does in November, read Sean Hannity's book, Live Free or Die, before you cast your ballot.
Well, there you go. All right, Greg, we're going to be watching. By the way, from now until August 22nd, you can get a free copy of Sean's book, Live Free or Die, by signing up for Fox Nation's 2-year plan. Go to foxnation.com for more information. Greg Jarrett, we thank you very much for joining us live. Have a great day.
Thanks.
You bet. All right, meanwhile, New Jersey's governor doubling down on his push to have students in the classroom this fall. But the question is, how do you keep the kids safe? Nicole Saphier lives in New Jersey, and she's going to talk about that coming up next.
Governor doubling down on the need to reopen our schools this fall.
Every education expert we've spoken to over the past few months has confirmed that in-person education is critical and that remote learning is only an acceptable substitute when absolutely necessary. If done safely, I believe we must try to include at least some aspect of in-person education for our children this fall.
This, as a new op-ed argues, we can and must reopen schools. Here to discuss this is Fox News medical contributor and author of the book right there, Make America Healthy Again, Dr. Nicole Saphier. Hi, Dr. Saphier.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. So New York's governor also said yesterday he anticipates that schools will reopen. He says in-person education is critical. So that's New Jersey and New York. What do you say?
Well, you know, so far it's been a lot of talk, not a lot of action. And you heard Governor Murphy saying, you know, he anticipates, he wants, we should try some level. But that's not really coming down hard. We have the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, all saying it is critical to make sure that these children have in-person classes. We can't just be saying we're going to try and do that. I want to hear how we're going to do that. New Jersey has over 2,000 elementary schools and more able to stay and linger in the air for a while. So it's not just necessarily screening the sick and making sure that they stay home. It's about improving ventilation. And of course, you know, with that requires funding and availability.
Yeah, Cuomo said stay home when you're sick, mask up, air cleaner in every classroom, refresh the indoor air, and temporary classrooms. And Congress is working on that relief package with money allocated for these schools to help them reopen. Let's talk about the vaccine, because yesterday the president was in North Carolina touring that facility for a potential vaccine from Novavax. And then Moderna's vaccine, they're beginning their phase 3. How close do you think we are to, what does that mean exactly?
Well, Ainsley, this is unprecedented times. President Trump's Operation Warp Speed is making us everyone work in parallel rather than working sequentially. And that gives us the best bet to potentially have a vaccine readily available as soon as possible. Moderna has just entered phase 3, and that's one of the last phases before it could potentially become available for the public. Phase 3 is going to take several months. Hopefully, they'll have recruitment by the fall. We may have some idea of the results by the end of 2020, but because Operation Warp Speed is having them manufacture this vaccine, as soon as we know if it's effective, if it is, it will likely be readily available sometime in 2021, hopefully much earlier. Had we not had Operation Warp Speed, what usually happens is it gets through phase 3 and then they begin ramping up manufacturing. And that can take another few months, another few years. So, you know, although I'm cautiously optimistic because only about 25 to 30% of products leave phase 3 successfully, the fact that we have so many different types of vaccines all being created right now, all being tested right now, gives me some hope that we will have a safe and successful vaccine at some point in the near future.
Yeah, that's promising. I hear scientists are working around the clock trying to get these vaccines out. Yeah. What do you recommend for the folks who say, or what's your advice to the people who say, like I have a friend who said, I'm not getting the vaccine, I'm not vaccinating my kids?
Listen, we never want to be skimpy when it comes to safety, specifically when it comes to medications and vaccines, but I can tell you that they are undergoing all the safety checks and they are not skimping on that. They will not bring something to market unless it is proven safe.
Thanks, Dr. Saphier.
Absolutely.
Taking center stage on Capitol Hill today, where Attorney General Bill Barr is going to testify.
Fox has received a copy of his prepared remarks. In it, he says, quote, every member of this committee, regardless of your political views, should condemn violence against federal officers and destruction of federal property. To tacitly condone destruction and anarchy is to abandon the basic rule of law principles.
The Barr Show starts at 10, but guess who's starting now at 6:39 Eastern Time? Judge, Andrew Napolitano. He's a judicial analyst. That's all over his resume. He will not wear a tie till he comes back to studio. More on that later. But first off, I believe that this is the Democrats can't wait to tee off on Bart, but I don't think they understand what they're dealing with. The facts have come back to back him up, from Russia to what's happening with these riots in Portland, Seattle, the unrest in Chicago. Correct?
I'm not sure why. Good morning, Brian.
Morning.
Stephen Ainsley. I'm not sure why they're having this confrontation today and why they're doing it in the middle of the summer, and why they're doing it while the mess in Portland is still going on. Do the Democrats have legitimate concerns? Yes. Does the president and does the DOJ have legitimate defenses? Yes. Is the Attorney General a very strong and forceful person, quite knowledgeable in the law, who will stand his ground? Absolutely. So I'm not sure what will happen today. Some of the members of the committee are going to be physically present in the hearing room, wearing masks, presumably, and some are going to interrogate the Attorney General remotely. But I don't know what either side expects to come out of it. Of course, they're going to ask him about Roger Stone, and there are legitimate reasons for the Stone pardon. His trial was hugely unfair. They're going to ask about the incident at Lafayette Park and St. John's Church. What role did the Attorney General play in that? And they're going to ask about what the federal officers are doing in Portland. Are they making it worse, or are they making it better? And I don't think it's going to move the needle. I don't think either side's mind will be changed by this.
He says he's been discredited ever since he said the Russiagate scandal was grave abuses and was bogus. So it'll be interesting to see that. All right, let's talk about that gym in New Jersey. I know you live in New Jersey, the Attilas gym. We have been covering this since the beginning of the shutdowns, and they refuse to shut down their gym. Thousands of people have been working out there. Not one of them has gotten COVID, according to reports. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that the governor of New Jersey is a fraud who has violated rules that he himself has promulgated, whose attorney general has dismissed thousands of summonses the police have issued for violating the governor's wishes, but who is determined to make an example out of these gym owners. So the governor tried to get the public utilities, the electricity and the water, turned off, and the electric company and the water company said, forget about it. These guys have prepaid for 3 months. We're not turning it off. Then the governor hired a locksmith to break into the gym and change the locks. The owners came by with their own locksmith and got back in their gym with their locks. Then they lived in the gym. Then they socially distanced everybody in that gym at 25 feet, not 6, 25. And still they're going to jail. It's not right. It's not fair. Prosecuted. This is what's called a disorderly persons offense. It's not even a criminal offense. The maximum time in jail is 90 days. For a first offender, you never go to jail for 90 days. If this is appealed to the Supreme Court of New Jersey, in my opinion, the Supreme Court of New Jersey will invalidate the governor's whims and argue that the judge in this case had no business turning those whims into a judicial order. Put aside the governor's personal aspects. He's eaten in restaurants that are serving inside when he won't let anybody else do it. He's walked arm in arm in demonstrations when he's about Black Lives Matter. He's broken up demonstrations, used the police to break up demonstrations against him. Put aside his personal defects. He can't write the law, and he can't punish people for violating what he has written. That's what the Supreme Court of New Jersey will do. If it doesn't, then it's going to go to the Supreme Court of the United States. It'll be a monumental case.
Okay. Judge, you make a strong case, and I'm 100% in your court before the segment, even more now after. And I feel bad for all those gym owners throughout the tri-state area who are basically told lose your livelihood, lose your house, lose your business. You're not even part of a phase back. So that's inexcusable. Judge, thanks so much.
Yes. Yes, it is. Did Jillian go to the gym this morning before she got to Fox?
Right.
No,
I'm not really sure. She stays up early. Hey,
Absolutely
Jillian,
not.
Take it away. You cannot work out.